Wow, that is a weird question. What do I like most about an English summer? I love the heat. I love watching the cricket, and that's good. Summers, I've lived a lot in Scotland, and the summers there merge with winters because it's not particularly great weather. But coming back down to Suffolk, where I live now, and to England, I find I'm relaxed. It's warmer. You generally know what weather you're going to have from day to day, and you can plan barbecues. But I like getting in the garden. Now I'm sort of virtually retired. My wife gets me to do the garden a lot more, so I'm more of a gardener now. We've got a nice vegetable plot at the top of the garden, so my raspberries are doing well, my strawberries are. I'm boring you now. This is a bit Monty Don here, but potatoes in particular. We've got a nice crop of potatoes. We have a nice crop every year. Runner beans, they're my favourite. So I like that. I've become sort of green-fingered. You can't say that around Rangers people, but I've become a bit green-fingered. But I love that. I just love not the certainty, but the almost certainty that it's going to be nice and warm and you can enjoy your summer. Get your shorts on, walk the dog, enjoy yourself, get the glasses on and sunbathe, really. I love that. Well, I've always wanted to be a football player. I think the best thing my parents did was buy me a leather football. And I used to dribble that to school and take it to school, and I was the most popular boy at school because I had the ball. It was my ball, so I was in the team. But I played in goal to start with, so I loved to see keepers diving across and all this sort of thing. And there was no gloves in those days. I remember Peter Bonetti was the first to have green gloves. Then they used to get pimples on them and all this sort of thing. So I like that. But I wanted to be a footballer, but was never picked up by Ipswich when I was 13, 14, 15, 16 really, until I was 17. I left school in 1976. I was going to be a quantity surveyor in Nottingham. Going to get a diploma course there. But then I got a trial at Ipswich. A fan of Ipswich wrote into the club and said, look, you better have a look at this boy because he's playing local football, was doing well. So I went along for a 4-week trial and Bobby Robson signed me after 3 weeks. £50 a week, which was more than my dad, who's on £43 a week. And I had to pay £5 a week rent to my mum straight away. So she's pretty shrewd. Although I thought I got a good deal because I could eat more than £5 worth of food all week. But I then became a professional, but I had to do the jobs. I had to clean boots and dressing rooms and all this kind of things as well the first year. But I was in the youth team with Russell Osman and Alan Brazil, and we won the South East Counties League by a mile that year. And I got into the reserve team the next year, and then eventually got into the first team. And I was lucky that when I got into the first team, I did pretty well. And Bobby Robson, who was my manager, just said, right, you know, he was always pleased with what I'd done, and I got more games. And then really 79 was my sort of breakthrough year. Played for the England under-21s as well, and it was the start to form the team that then did well in 1980 and 81. Won the UEFA Cup and finished second in the league to Villa, and semi-finalists of the FA Cup as well. 66 games we played that year, so it was a gradual process. And I think with football as well, it's not immediate. It's not you immediately do this. And there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes, a lot of work you have to do. But if you work as hard as you can, hopefully the end result will be, you know, just encompasses all that work that you do, all that preparation. Well, the outward impression of Bobby, I've never had anybody say bad things about Bobby Robson. They loved him, and everybody loves him and still loves him to this day. In fact, love him probably more now than when he was alive. But he was my hero because I was an Ipswich fan. I used to go and watch them on the terraces when we used to stand, and I was a bit smaller, so I had a milk crate to stand on to watch the team. And my heroes were people like Kevin Beattie and Alan Hunter, Mick Mills, all the people that I eventually got to play with and play alongside. And for me to walk into Ipswich and be signed by Bobby Robson was a big honour, but also to be with my heroes was an even bigger honour. So I had to sort of kick myself sometimes because, you know, you had to start playing football rather than just watching them play, because I've been used to watching my heroes play. But Bobby was the leader, he was the main man, he was everything that he did, you wanted to do, and you wanted to please him. You wanted more than anything else. And he used to say to me, and to other players as well, you know, he'd get you to one side, he'd have his like one-to-one meetings, his man management was excellent. And he used to say to me, Butcher, he says, he never called me Terry, he used to say, Butcher, he says, whenever I picked you, whenever I select you, you never let me down. And I love that. And if someone says that to you, I've got the adrenaline's running now already. I remember that. You're going to do well for him, and you want to do well. But he was a clever man because he was very good. Yes, he used to get people's names wrong, but he had so many names to remember. But he was very focused on what he had to do, and he was very well planned as well. A lot of the stuff we did with England later on, when he became England manager, was in preparation. 85, we went over to Mexico in preparation for 86. A lot of the stuff we did prior to Italy, we'd already got used to the heat, what we were going to do, how he was going to play. He knew what team he was going to play. I remember in 78 in Ipswich won the FA Cup, beat Arsenal in the final. He changed the team immediately afterwards and brought in people like Arnold Muren and Frans Thijssen from Holland, which was unheard of. So he changed the team round, and that then changed the whole aspect of the club for 80-81. So he built teams up, he changed teams. In 86 in the World Cup in Argentina, he changed the system before the third game because we were struggling, we'd lost in a 4-3-3 system and then drew against Morocco. So we were going out of the competition in the group stage. He changed the team 4-4-2, got to the quarter-final, should have gone further. And in 1990, he knew what team he wanted to play in each of the 3 group matches in Italia 90. And he changed it from a 4-4-2 the first game to a 3-5-2. So he was very astute. But what he did, he taught and he went through the team, this is what you do, this is how you do it. Every player knew their jobs and knew what to do. And then, of course, he went to Europe after England in 1990. Went across to PSV, then obviously Spain and Portugal. And he won a lot of cups and a lot of trophies there, a lot of leagues as well. So you could say, when you actually look back, you just say, well, Sir Alex Ferguson and Bill Shankly's and Busby and all these people were fantastic managers. But Bobby went abroad and won titles and won cups abroad. Plus the fact he was fighting cancer in the latter stages when he was winning trophies. You know, for me, that stands out head and shoulders as possibly he could well be, and that's an argument that a lot of people could have, that he was the best English manager of all time. Well, the team in 80-81, it was prior to, obviously, to the Premier League. And a lot of people think that football didn't exist before the Premier League, but it certainly did, and it was very competitive and very hard. It was for the hardy, not for the faint-hearted, to put it that way. So we had a great team, and we were playing a lot of games. Let's say 66 games. I played in 64. Russell Osman played all 66, and it was hard work because you're playing sometimes Saturday, sometimes Monday, sometimes Wednesday, sometimes Saturday. So it's 4 games in 8 days, and it was a big test for you, and plus the travelling as well. It wouldn't happen today because of the size of the squads had changed things around anyway. But I think there was a togetherness in those days, and we wanted to win things because we wanted to leave a legacy. We wanted to be remembered as a really good footballing team because we had a little unique system. The little diamond shape was very good. Eric Gates behind Paul Mariner and Alan Brazil, and teams couldn't combat that. They didn't know what to do. But I think Bobby would have evolved it if teams had worked this out. That he would have evolved it anyway. But he left in '82 shortly after. But he wanted to leave a legacy. We wanted to make people love our time and remember. And you speak to a lot of the people in Suffolk and East Anglia now, and they do remember. But all round England, I think we were like the second favourite team. Fans had their own team, and then we became the second team because of the way that we played. We scored goals. We beat Manchester United 6-0 that season and missed 3 penalties in the same game. You know, we won a lot of good games by playing some lovely, attractive football. And in those days, it was tough. The pitches were awful, but some of the football we played on awful surfaces because we trained on poor surfaces as well. We didn't have the training grounds I got now, but we had to get used to that. But I think it was more the ethic, the work ethic, the team together. We wanted to be a team that was special because we felt really special when we played. We loved it, and I think we did just that. I think when you win and entertain the way that we did, then anybody will admire that. They may begrudgingly not like it because they could be a Norwich fan or a fan of some team that hates us, or a Villa fan at the time, because we were pretty good. But it was we wanted to build a legacy. But unfortunately, '82, Bobby left, the manager left, Arnold Muren left, and then because they built a stand to try and get more fans in, obviously to try and do what Arsenal did to move stadiums to get more revenue. It sort of backfired because the payments back on that stand, players then had to be sold, and because you're selling your top class international players and not replacing them like for like, then your standard is going to drop, and we did drop. And in the end, '86 we were relegated. So it was a brief spell, but it was phenomenal. It was an unbelievable spell to be an Ipswich fan, because from '78 winning the FA Cup through to '81, that was the best sort of spell of football Ipswich have ever seen, and probably will ever see again. So it was special and nice to be part of that. But as to trying to capture the imagination of people and try and be a household name across Europe or across England, well, that wasn't our aim. Our aim was just to go and play football, and we enjoyed it. We loved it. We had to play. Well, we got relegated in '86, 85-86 season. We were relegated, and I went to the World Cup. Bobby Ferguson was the manager then. He was number 2 to Bobby Robson, and he just said, "Go to the World Cup, and then we'll see what happens, because we have, you have to go. We need the money for the repayment of the stand." I think I was the final repayment on the stand. So I was captain. I'd already signed a contract the year before for another 3 years. I think I wanted to stay. I wanted to get my club back. They're a team I loved and supported, and I was captain. Having captained a team that goes down, you want to help them come back. So went away to the World Cup, did okay in the World Cup, and Graham Souness came in with an offer. I think 750,000, I think, but he paid cash. Didn't pay it in instalments like other clubs do, 6 months, and then 6 months. We went bang. That was part of the Rangers revolution in 1986 then. So he met me at the airport. We got the hotels wrong because the mobile phones weren't working then. I didn't have them. The fact is, I was drunk when he phoned me up, and I got the hotel wrong. But anyway, we eventually got together in the hotel, and he whisked me up to Scotland, showed me around Ibrox and showed me around Scotland. I'd been there before with England, but not for long, and I signed for Rangers. And so I went from getting relegated with Ipswich about a month or two later, then signing for Rangers. So big thing at the time, but it was, Chris Woods was already there, who I'd been at the World Cup with. He didn't tell me where he was going to go during the summer. He said he'd sign for somebody, but he'd never tell me. And Mark Falco from Spurs was the first signing from Graham Souness. So I was the third one, became the captain. And then a whole host of a galaxy of stars signed after that. It was just a wonderful place to be. And Scottish football was different to English football. And in those days, you could have a lot of teams. 5 or 6 teams could win the league. They were capable of winning the league. And with the money that was invested in Rangers at the time by Lawrence Marlborough, who owned the club, we were able to get some of the biggest names in English football, as well as some of the some great European names in there, and they all came and wanted to do well for Rangers. It was brilliant. It was an unbelievable season. We won 2 out of the 3 trophies, got a title, probably ahead of time, but it was, wow, what a place. I never knew Scotland was so football mad. I mean, it's just mental up there. And there's loads of clubs, not many population, but there's lots of press. And the goldfish bowl that was Scottish football was just wonderful to be in. It was just fantastic. Well, I've since heard that Sir Alex was quite keen on me and that he wanted to sign me. I'm not too sure I don't think it was at the start of the 86-87 season. I think it was just later on in the season. So I think he left Aberdeen for Manchester United. And I hear that he might have been interested and made inquiries, but it never filtered down to me. But at the end of the day, there was only one other person interested in signing me in '86, and in that summer when Souness came in for me, and that was David Pleat at Spurs. And Pleaty said, "Come down to Spurs and we'll get you signed up and we'll talk money later on." And I thought, well, it doesn't work that way, David. But he was very keen on me. But he wouldn't match the price that Spurs Rangers came in for me. He wouldn't match that money. So in the end, I went to Rangers. It was the only club that offered me money, but it was something that when I looked at what the club had and the players that were there, David Coopers, Ali McCoy, some of these other people, I wanted to go. I was tapped up by Manchester United before Rangers. I was tapped up by Manchester United with Ron Atkinson was the manager. Brian Robson to phone me up, and the tapping up and all that sort of thing. It does happen, and it will ever happen. And he said I virtually had where I was going to live, what school I was going to put the children in, and everything sorted out. So I just needed to go ahead from Big Ron and Brian Robson, but it never happened. Well, in the Ipswich team at the time was Alan Brazil, who was a big Celtic fan, Johnny Walk, big Rangers fan, Alan Hunter, big Rangers fan, and George Burley, who was from Ayrshire. He wasn't really bothered about that sort of thing. But I've been to Scotland before with England, obviously, to play, but also we went to Ibrox to play in a testimonial match, and we won 2-1. So I've been up there, never really been up there for long periods of time, so it was good for me to actually see what Scotland was all about. But then it hits you right between the eyes. You know, yes, you have the sectarianism, and you have the fervour and the passion of the fans. You don't realise what it's like in Scotland to play for either Rangers or Celtic. It is massive. They're two huge clubs. On the comparison, well, they're as big as clubs in England. They're as big as clubs in Europe in terms of the passion, the fans, the facilities at the time, and all this sort of thing as well. The ambition and what they want to do, the titles, the history. They're just unbelievable. And at that time as well, remember in '86 there was no European football for English clubs, so we were going to play in Europe, and as luck would have it, it was after 1987 when we won the league, we got into the European Cup. So I was able to play in the Cup Winners' Cup, the UEFA Cup, and the European Cup, all three major cup competitions at that time. Of course, two have gone now, really, the Europa League now and the Champions League. But there was no European football, which was a big thing for me to play European football, because Ipswich had qualified for a lot of years for Europe. So as soon as the terms were agreed and everything else like that, I thought, yeah, I really fancy this. But then everything you do and everything you build up, and you have the expectations. When you play an Old Firm game, the first Old Firm game was at Ibrox. When you play an Old Firm game, nothing prepares you for that, nothing whatsoever. England debuts, England matches, England Scotland, whatever, England Wales, nothing is in comparison. Club derbies, no. That is the biggest club derby, that is the biggest derby in the world. It is unbelievable. And we were lucky to, not lucky, but we won the first game 1-0, deserved to win the first game at Ibrox 1-0. Ian Durant scored from a David Cooper pass, God bless him, and we won the game. But there was a contingent of English press that came up for the game, and they came up to watch it. And I met them in the foyer of Ibrox, and it's all wooden panelling and history, statues, busts and all that sort of thing. And they looked at me and I said, lads, I said, you know, that's why I came to Rangers. And they all went, yeah, we can understand that now. Wow, you're blown away. The noise, the passion, the singing. You can't speak to somebody 5 yards away from you and make yourself heard, because the noise is immense. You just got to rely on instinct and your training and what you do and work like this, and just your judgment as well, because it is wonderful to play in. It's fantastic to win, but it's awful to lose. And if you draw, you don't know which way to go. Well, here we go. What do I do now? But when you win it, you're on an absolute high, and that's why at Rangers we used to lose our next game after an Old Firm game that we'd won, because we were still high after the Old Firm game. But if you lose, it's like the end of the world. You hide away. But it's just the best game, and it's a great game to watch. If you're a neutral, if there's any neutrals that go and watch Old Firm games, you just go, wow, that is just stupendous. There's nothing like it in the world, nothing like it at all. Well, the first goal, I never really saw him handle it at all. Terry Fenwick, the goalie, Glenn Hoddle ran past me claiming handball. I never saw it, so I chased after them to say handball, hoping he'd disallow it. He didn't disallow it. We all know afterwards that it was a handball, blatant handball. But at the time, I think that hit us really hard, because they scored the second goal pretty quick after that. And everybody says it's the greatest goal in World Cup history, but not for me it isn't, because I'm the only Englishman he beats twice on that run. So I showed him inside to Peter Reid. Peter Reid was breathing fumes at the time. Then Terry Fenwick's already on the booking, the edge of the box. He can't bring him down. If he brings him down, he's off. the goalie comes out, Pete Shilton comes out. If he touches him, he's down for a penalty. And as I come back, he goes round Peter Shilton, and I think I can get this, but I couldn't see the ball because he's a fat little boy and stocky, and I couldn't see the ball, so I've just stuck my leg out to try and whip the ball away, hoping the ball would be there, but he just gets a toe, puts it in the net. I say to most people, well, I scored that goal, it's the greatest own goal in World Cup history, but it really wasn't. It was his goal, and it was a fantastic goal, but from a defensive point of view, it was a calamity. But 2-0 down, and then we start to play. So the last 15 minutes, we played the best football could and should really have equalised in the game when John Barnes came on. So, but after the game, you're just distraught because that was the best chance we had of getting through to a World Cup semi-final, as far as we were concerned, and we blew it. I think 1990 was our best chance of winning it because there was nothing in the game between us and West Germany, nothing at all. We were strong in every department like them. We had goal scorers like them. We had characters like them, and it had to go to penalties in the end of the day. But their penalties were better than ours, unfortunately. But that's how close things are when you get at that stage. It hurt me more with the semi-final defeat than the quarter-final. It felt more anger in the quarter-final defeat because of the way we went out and the way we played, and obviously the handball. But I felt proud after that game because it was to be captain of the country in a World Cup semi. You know, there's only Bobby Moore and now Harry Kane that's ever done that. So I'm in a very sort of elite group, but it doesn't count for anything because we didn't make the final. You know, that's the biggest regret. I haven't seen the final to this day when Bremer scores the winner for Germany. I haven't seen it, and I don't want to see it. I'll never see it because, you know, you sort of feel that's what we should have done because Argentina had men out, injured players, suspended players. Maradona wasn't great then, and you sort of feel that was the best chance we'll ever have of winning it. No, I don't think most goalkeepers, probably any goalkeepers, would have gotten near the penalties that they hit at that time. It was their time. They whether they practice them, whether they do everything psychologically or whatever, I don't know, but they strike some beautiful penalties, and they did. When it really mattered, they came to the party, they came to the show, and they smacked home 5 penalties. And we unfortunately missed 2, but afterwards it took a while for it to sink in. That's a horrible feeling it does. But it was like, after the game, you sort of think how proud we were. And I'll tell you one story. After the game, the 2 team buses were together in the tunnel after the game, Germany bus and our bus. And we got onto our bus first, because you have to go through the media section. And Gaza found some beers underneath the coach. So we got some beers, big crate of beers. So we got the beers out. We were on the bus waiting for the gaffer, waiting for other players to come on board. And the Germans came on their bus, and they've got the bottles of water because they've got a World Cup final to play. We're out of the tournament sort of thing, but a 3rd and 4th place match to play, which is awful. So we're on the beers and we start singing Bladen Races and You'll Never Walk Alone and all that sort of thing, and we start singing the football songs. And our bus is like literally rocking, found some more beers and all that, so I start singing away. And the Germans are on their bus, and the Germans looking across at us thinking, well, who's won this semi-final? Is it us or is it them? And they honestly couldn't believe it. They could not believe how we'd reacted and in the spirits that we were. But we had a great journey. We had a great tournament, a great time, and it's time to really try and let our hair down. We went back to I think it was Juventus's training ground in Turin, and we drank the cellar dry. They've got a lovely cellar there, we drank it dry. So yeah, we left our mark in the World Cup, put it that way. Well, I mean, there's a reason why you don't get players covered in blood now because of what happened with the blood issue and AIDS and all that sort of thing as well. A bit of a panic, but you never get that because it's not really right. But I was brought up in an era where you did do that. I remember the Ipswich semi-final in 1978 against West Brom, and Brian Talbot went in with John Weil, and both of them smashed heads. I think Brian scored a goal, but they smashed heads, and they were both covered in blood. But that's what you were brought up in. That's what you did. And at that time in '89, when I was England captain, okay, we had all white kit on, which is probably the best thing because it shows up very much better. But it's just what you did. And I would say any Englishman worth his salt, he would love that. He'd roll his sleeves up and get stuck in. And Bobby Robson was, he showed, when I was having stitches at half time, he brought Gazza in. Gazza was a sub, he brought Gazza in. And Gaz says to Gazza, look, he says, That's what it takes to play for England. And Gazza's own words were, I shit a brick, is what he says. Because it was like, Gazza thought, I've got to do that every game I play for England now. I have to at least cut my head and be like that. He couldn't believe it. I said, I can't do that, I can't do that. And the Arsenal doctor, bless him, he's gone now, Doc Crane. He couldn't stitch everything up, so he left a little gap. So I went out in the second half, and every player and every team, of the two teams, every player had a bit of my blood on their shirts, their shorts, or their socks. They had a bit of blood on it, and the ball was sticky. You know, you'd actually pick the ball up. I've got big hands anyway, but you can pick the ball up because of the stickiness and the squelching sound when I used to head the ball. But the worst thing was, I used to head a ball away, and Peter Shilton came out and pat me on the head. Well done, Butch. Well done. Boom, boom, pat me on the head. But it was unique in a way, because that was probably heralded the time now when you couldn't have any blood on you. You couldn't, if you had bleed, you'd have to be off. And I think nowadays I had to have 7 stitches. But the time it took to get, you'd make a substitute. As a manager, you'd make a substitution, because playing with 10 men at international level especially could prove costly. No, I didn't have any awareness at all. I was doing my job. I was captain of the team. I wasn't captain many times, but I was captain of a World Cup qualifying match as well. And I wanted to do really well, so that's what I did. But the only thing I regret more than anything else is I didn't have any image rights at the time. There was no such thing as image rights. So all the photographers got the picture, and they get money for the pictures. Now everybody wants to buy the picture, but I don't get anything. So I find that a bit hard, but there we are. But nowadays you'd have your image rights, and you'd probably get a lot of money for that. But I like it in a way because it's what people remember me for more than anything else. And if you go onto Wikipedia or Google or wherever it is, and you search and you find that people, if the younger generation don't know who I am, I just type in and I go, there we are, and they go, wow, that's not you. And I said, yes it is. That was me. They can't believe it, because it doesn't happen now, does it? It doesn't happen. But it used to on a quite regular basis in those days.